If you watch enough movies, you might think a civilization collapses overnight. A natural disaster strikes, and a thriving metropolis is reduced to dust. The archaeological reality looks very different. These cities took generations to empty out. As topsoil eroded and crop yields fell, the population simply migrated away to find food. Scientifically, a societal collapse is a forced reduction in a civilization's economic and political complexity, which raises a practical question. Our modern global supply chains are highly optimized to deliver goods exactly when we need them. Are they exposed to the exact same structural traps that broke ancient empires? To navigate upcoming climate and resource bottlenecks, we have to look at how a society's complexity eventually becomes its greatest liability. Anthropologist Joseph Tainter observed that societies naturally solve emerging problems by layering on complexity, adding bureaucracies, expanding infrastructure, and building trade networks. This chart plots complexity against prosperity. Early investments provide massive benefits, and prosperity rises steeply. Eventually, maintaining intricate systems costs more than the value produced. Returns diminish, and the line plateaus. At this fragile peak, any new stressor causes a rapid systemic breakdown. Academic analysis of the Roman, Maya, and Akkadian empires confirms this exact pattern. Each society overextended its resources until it could no longer absorb shocks. Peak efficiency breeds systemic fragility. Let's look at how this happens in practice. Complex societies usually begin by engineering massive, rigid infrastructure to control their natural resources. The water management network at Angkor Wat is a perfect example. They built enormous canals and reservoirs to route seasonal monsoons, sustaining a booming population. The trade-off was that this hyper-complex system required relentless upkeep. It was heavily optimized for a very specific weather pattern, leaving it zero flexibility to adapt. Paleoclimate data reveals that a sequence of severe megadroughts and extreme floods overwhelmed the canals and destroyed the rigid water network. We see the exact same outcome in the Indus Valley. Their communities relied on intricate irrigation systems that completely failed when regional river courses shifted. Attempting to control the environment with rigid engineering works right up until the baseline climate changes. Then, that protective infrastructure turns into a trap. The next strategy is over-relying on highly efficient, specialized agricultural systems to feed expanding populations. The Maya utilized this approach. To support their massive urban centers, they relied heavily on maize, extracting the highest possible yield from their land. The trade-off for this efficiency was severe environmental degradation. Relentless, specialized farming led to vast deforestation, rapid soil erosion, and total biodiversity loss. This created a devastating feedback loop. Stripping tree cover altered local hydrology, exacerbating a natural megadrought and triggering widespread agricultural failure. Modern global agriculture operates on a similar logic. We rely heavily on massive monocultures and fossil fuels to maximize our immediate output. But maximizing agricultural efficiency destroys ecological redundancy. It creates a single point of failure, where a localized stressor, like a drought or a disease, can trigger widespread famine. The final strategy for growth is expanding into deeply interconnected geopolitical and economic networks. For the Roman and Akkadian empires, expanding their borders brought in vast tax revenues, rapid technological innovation, and heavy trade. But the cost of defending and administering those sprawling territories eventually outpaced the revenue they generated. In Rome, this military overreach led directly to crippling inflation. Highly interconnected systems automatically import systemic risk. A disruption in one isolated region rapidly cascades across the entire network. Because a highly optimized global network operates with zero slack, a single failure triggers an uncontrollable chain reaction. Hyper-connected global networks generate massive wealth during stable times, but they practically guarantee that local crises will become devastating global shocks. The populations of these collapsed empires did not vanish. When their highly optimized systems broke down, they survived by actively changing their way of life. They adapted by intentionally reverting to simpler, localized, and much more self-reliant forms of community organization. This scoreboard illustrates the options for modern planners. We have to actively trade peak economic efficiency for intentional, systemic redundancy. In practice, that means investing heavily in localized resource management. building community solar grids, regional water recycling facilities, and diversified local food networks. The trade-off is direct. These localized systems cost significantly more upfront, and they reduce short-term profit margins compared to cheap globalized sourcing. Deliberately paying the premium for redundancy is the only mathematical way to build a functional buffer against inevitable climate variations and supply chain shocks. For the engaged citizen, resilience starts by recognizing the inherent fragility of the highly complex cities we rely on every day. It requires advocating for integrated water management and prioritizing local ecological health over unchecked, hyper-efficient urban growth. Historically, maintaining strong, localized community cohesion is just as critical to surviving a severe crisis as the physical infrastructure itself. If we ignore this historical data and continue to optimize for maximum global complexity, we risk repeating the slow-burn abandonment of past civilizations. Modern society must actively choose to downgrade its systemic fragility now, on its own terms. Otherwise, environmental reality will force the decision upon us.